On a distant colony world called Varela 9, the nights glowed softly with blue light from strange plants, and the sky shimmered under two pale moons. The air was warm, filled with the scent of silver trees and soft humming from glowing insects that lived near the lakes. Humans had built a small research base here, studying the planet's unusual life. Among them was a young biologist named Ethan. He had brown hair, a curious mind, and a quiet nature that made him prefer working alone. Ethan came to Varela 9 to study the unique creatures that glowed in the dark. Most of them were harmless, but some were mysterious, showing signs of intelligence. The planet had once belonged to an alien race known as the Lyrians. Most Lyrians kept away from the human colony, living deep in the forests, but one of them often came near the lake where Ethan worked. Her name was Lyra. Lyra was unlike anything Ethan had seen. She looked partly human, but also carried a strange beauty. Skin faintly glowing, eyes reflecting the moonlight, and small silver markings along her arms that moved slightly like living tattoos. She was curious and often watched Ethan from the trees until he finally spoke to her one evening. At first she didn't understand his words, but over time she learned. Her voice was soft and musical, and she laughed at how slowly humans spoke. Ethan and Lyra began to meet every night near the lake. He brought food samples and she brought flowers that pulsed with light. They didn't fully understand each other's languages, but they shared emotions through gestures, laughter, and the silence between words. Lyra taught Ethan how to hum in her people's way, a tune that made the flowers bloom faster under the moonlight. Ethan taught her how to write her name in English. It was a strange friendship, something pure in a world full of rules. But after several weeks, Ethan noticed something different about Lyra. One night, when the moonlight was especially bright, he saw a faint swelling on her back, just below her shoulder blades. It was small at first, almost invisible under her glowing skin. He thought it might be a mark, maybe part of her natural pattern. But as the days passed, the lump grew larger. It began to pulse faintly with light like a heartbeat. When he asked her about it, Lyra looked frightened. Her usual calm expression disappeared. She touched the lump gently and said in a quiet voice, "Not now, not safe." Then she turned away and refused to say more. Ethan didn't press the issue, but worry began to grow inside him. He had studied many alien species before, and none of them had biological growths that behaved like that. He feared it might be an infection or parasite. Lyra grew weaker each night. Her glow faded slightly, and sometimes her hands trembled when she tried to pick flowers. She didn't hum as often, and her smile seemed forced. Ethan couldn't stand seeing her in pain. He wanted to tell his team, but the research colony had strict rules. No contact or interference with native species. If he reported her condition, they would capture her for study. She would become a subject, not a person. Ethan couldn't allow that, so he kept the secret. He met her in the forest every night, bringing medical scanners hidden in his pack. He tried scanning her from a distance, pretending he was just checking the soil. The readings were strange. The lump on her back showed energy activity, something alive but not separate from her. It was part of her body. The energy frequency matched none of the patterns known on Varela 9. One evening, rain began to fall while they sat near the lake. The surface rippled with silver reflections, and Lyra sat quietly beside him, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. She whispered, "Ethan, your people fear what they do not understand." He nodded slowly, understanding her meaning even though her words were few. She looked away and added, "When it happens, you must not be afraid." "When what happens?" he asked softly. She looked down at her reflection in the lake. "Change," she said simply. Ethan wanted to ask more, but her expression told him not to. He respected her silence, though it filled him with unease. Something was happening to her, something beyond his knowledge. The lump grew larger each day, until one night it was the size of both his fists together. It glowed brighter than before, throbbing like something alive inside. Then, on the 7th night after the rain, everything changed. Ethan was in his tent, reading data on plant growth when he heard a soft cry outside. It was faint but sharp enough to make his heart jump. He recognized the voice. It was Lyra's. He grabbed his light, ran through the forest, and followed the sound until he reached the lake. There she was, kneeling by the water, trembling. Her glow flickered like a dying flame. "Lyra!" Ethan rushed to her side. She tried to speak, but her voice cracked. The lump on her back pulsed violently. spreading lines of light through her skin like lightning veins. Ethan reached out, but she shook her head, gasping. "Don't touch, not yet." Her breathing grew fast. The air around them started to hum, a deep vibration that shook the ground slightly. The trees glowed brighter, reacting to her energy. Ethan backed away, watching in awe and fear. The lump swelled rapidly, almost as if something inside was trying to break free. Lyra screamed softly, clutching the earth as light began to pour from her back. Ethan's instinct told him to run, but his heart refused. He couldn't leave her like this. He covered his eyes as the light grew too bright, almost blinding. Then came a sharp cracking sound like something splitting open. The glow burst outward, filling the entire lake with a wave of light that sent ripples across the water and illuminated the whole forest. When Ethan dared to look again, he froze in shock. Lyra was still kneeling, but the lump on her back had split open completely. From it unfolded two long, translucent shapes, glimmering faintly. They looked like wings, massive and delicate, each one made of light and thin, glass-like material that shimmered in every color of the spectrum. Ethan stared, speechless. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Lyra trembled, tears rolling down her cheeks, but her face was calm now. The pain had ended. She looked up at Ethan and whispered, "It's done." He stepped closer slowly, unable to believe what he was seeing. Her wings stretched fully, casting soft light over the trees. They pulsed with the rhythm of her heartbeat. He whispered, "Lyra, you're—" She smiled weakly. "Becoming." Ethan felt his throat tighten. He had read legends about ancient Lyrians who once had wings of light. Spiritual beings who guided life on their world before their species lost the ability. But those were old stories, dismissed as myth. Yet here it was, real before his eyes. Lyra tried to stand, but her legs trembled. Ethan caught her gently, careful not to touch her new wings. They gave off warmth like sunlight. He could feel her heartbeat through her skin. "You'll be okay," he said softly, though he wasn't sure he believed it himself. She shook her head slightly. "It is not over. The change has only begun." Her voice sounded distant now, as if echoing from somewhere far away. He noticed small glowing particles rising from her wings into the air, drifting upward like fireflies. The forest seemed to respond, plants opening, animals moving silently closer but keeping a respectful distance. Even the air felt charged, alive. Ethan didn't understand what was happening, but he knew it was something sacred, something his people must never see. If the colony found out, they would come with scanners and weapons, claiming to study and protect while only taking. He couldn't let that happen. Not to her. The light began to fade, leaving behind a faint silver glow around Lyra. She leaned against him, exhausted, whispering, "Ethan, I was afraid it would destroy me, but now, I think it is something else." He brushed her hair gently aside and said, "Whatever it is, you're not alone." His voice was steady, but his mind raced with confusion and awe. What was this transformation? What would happen next? The night grew quiet again, but something in the air had changed. Ethan looked up at the moons reflecting on the water. They seemed brighter, almost watching them. Lyra rested her head on his shoulder. Her new wings folded softly behind her like veils of light. Ethan knew this was only the beginning of something far larger than either of them could understand. But in that silent moment, by the glowing lake under twin moons, he felt something deeper than science could ever explain. A connection between human and alien, fear and wonder, life and rebirth. As the wind passed through the forest, the glowing leaves whispered softly and the lake shimmered. Ethan tightened his hold around Lyra, his mind full of questions but his heart full of peace. Whatever had happened tonight was beyond explanation, but it was real. And deep down, he felt that the universe had just revealed one of its oldest secrets through the light of an alien girl's wings. Ethan sat quietly beside Lyra, his eyes fixed on her faintly glowing wings. The night had returned to calm after the burst of light that had shaken the whole valley. Only the sound of the soft wind and the gentle rippling of the lake filled the air. He still couldn't believe what he had seen. The lump that had terrified him for days had opened like a cocoon, revealing wings that shimmered like liquid glass. Lyra breathed slowly, her head resting against his shoulder. She looked weaker now, but there was peace in her expression. Her wings moved slightly with every breath, glowing faintly in rhythm with her heartbeat. Ethan didn't know what to do. He had no training for something like this. His equipment couldn't explain what had just happened. And if he told anyone from the colony, they would come for her. They would capture her, study her, maybe even harm her in the name of science. He couldn't let that happen. After a few minutes, Lyra opened her eyes and looked at him. Her voice was soft but clear. "You stayed," she whispered. "Of course," Ethan said quietly. "I wasn't going to leave you." She gave a faint smile. "Most would have run. My kind once believed humans could never understand change. Maybe we were wrong." Ethan shook his head. "No, I think humans are just afraid of what they can't explain." Lyra slowly pulled away and tried to stand. Her legs were weak and her wings trembled, but she managed to stay on her feet. Ethan helped her, careful not to touch her wings. They felt alive, almost like they had their own pulse. When she looked at them, her eyes filled with emotion. "It has been so long," she whispered, more to herself than to him. "So long since what?" Ethan asked gently. Lyra turned toward the forest, her voice almost like a song. "Since any of my kind was reborn." Ethan frowned, confused. "Reborn?" She nodded slowly. "Long ago, before your kind came to this world, the Lyrians could transform. Every 1,000 cycles one would awaken with wings of light. They were called the Keepers of the Balance. But after the great storms, our people lost this gift. We became weaker and forgot how to rise again." She looked at her hands as if seeing them for the first time. "I did not think it would ever happen again. I thought I was dying." Ethan's heart tightened. "You thought that lump meant you were dying?" "Yes," she said softly. "We call it the burden. Many who carried it did not survive. I was afraid to tell you because I thought it would end the same way. But you stayed, and somehow, it didn't destroy me." Ethan didn't know what to say. The glow from her wings reflected on his face as he watched her. She looked otherworldly, yet so fragile. He realized she had trusted him with something sacred. Before he could speak, a deep rumbling sound echoed across the sky. Lyra turned sharply, her wings rising slightly as if reacting to danger. Ethan looked up and saw faint red lights moving between the trees. Colony patrol drones. They must have detected the energy surge from her transformation. Ethan's stomach dropped. "They're coming." Lyra's expression darkened. "They must not find me. If they see me like this, they will not understand." Ethan knew she was right. The colony would treat her like a specimen. The rules were strict. Anything new, anything unexplained must be captured for study. He grabbed her hand. "We have to move." She hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Together they ran into the forest, the soft glow from her wings lighting the path ahead. The forest seemed to respond to her presence. The plants moved slightly as they passed, and glowing seeds rose from the ground, floating like stars around them. Ethan had never seen anything like it. Behind them, the sound of drones grew louder. Beams of white light cut through the darkness, searching the trees. Ethan ducked behind a large root, pulling Lyra down beside him. He could hear the metallic buzz of scanning devices. "Stay quiet," he whispered. Lyra's breathing was fast, her wings trembling with faint light. She closed her eyes and began humming softly, the same way she had done before when calming the flowers. The hum spread through the air like an invisible wave. The drone nearest to them froze mid-air, its lights flickering. A few seconds later, it powered down completely and fell silently to the ground. Ethan stared at her. "You did that?" She nodded slowly, her eyes glowing faintly. "The wings are not just for flight. They carry life energy. I can feel the machines. They are simple, easy to quiet." He smiled, half in relief, half in awe. "You just saved us." They continued deeper into the forest, moving toward the old ruins Lyra had once mentioned. The air grew cooler, and the glowing plants gave way to stone pillars covered in strange carvings. Ethan shone his small light on them and gasped. The carvings showed tall beings with wings, standing among stars, surrounded by smaller figures who knelt before them. Lyra touched one of the carvings gently. "This is where the first keepers lived. They guarded the heart of this world." Ethan looked closer and realized the carvings also showed a pattern. Humans arriving on ships, the balance breaking, and the wings fading from the Lyrians. It was a story written in stone. "So your people lost this power after humans came?" Lyra shook her head. "Not because of humans. Because of what came with them. The machines. The hunger to change what already was." Ethan felt a pang of guilt, though he knew it wasn't his fault personally. Still, he couldn't deny what she said. Humanity had changed this planet without understanding it fully. Suddenly, a voice crackled through the forest, a metallic echo from the drones. Unidentified energy signature detected. Surrender immediately. Ethan's pulse raced. He looked at Lyra. We can't hide much longer. Lyra's wings flared slightly, the light reflecting on the stone walls. Then we don't hide. Before Ethan could stop her, she stepped into the open area of the ruins. Her wings stretched wide, glowing bright enough to light the entire space. The drones appeared above, surrounding them. Ethan ran to her, standing beside her even as the beams of light fixed on them. Don't do this, he whispered. They'll shoot. She looked at him calmly. Then they will learn. The drones fired warning flashes, but before the bolts reached them, her wings pulsed once, just once, and everything stopped. The beams vanished. The drones froze midair. For a few seconds, time itself seemed to hold its breath. Then one by one, the machines powered down, their lights fading until they fell silently to the ground like dead birds. Ethan stood in awe. The forest around them began to glow again, brighter than ever. The ruins shone with energy flowing through the ancient carvings. Lyra's wings were now fully expanded, shimmering like rivers of light. She looked at him with soft eyes. The balance remembers. It needed a bridge to wake again. You were that bridge. I don't understand, Ethan said, his voice trembling. She stepped closer, her glow wrapping around him like warm light. You showed me care when others would have turned away. Your courage reminded this world that life is still worth trusting. The energy responded to that. He shook his head in disbelief. I just didn't want to lose you, Lyra smiled. Sometimes that is enough. A soft wind swept through the ruins, carrying glowing dust that circled them. Ethan could feel something changing in the air, like the planet itself was breathing again. Lyra looked at the sky, her wings spreading wider. It is time for me to go where the keepers once went, beyond the clouds to the heart of the stars. But I will not go alone, Ethan blinked. What do you mean? She reached out her hand. You have touched the light. It has marked you. If you stay, your people will never understand. But if you come with me, you will see what no human has seen before. He hesitated. His heart pounded. He thought of the base, of the team who would search for him, of the life he would leave behind. But then he looked at her, glowing, alive, peaceful, and all his doubts faded. He took her hand. Then I'll go with you. Her wings flared and the ruins lit up like a sunrise. The ground trembled softly as a beam of light rose around them, swirling upward into the sky. Ethan felt himself lifted, weightless, as the light wrapped around them both. He didn't feel fear, only warmth, as if the stars themselves were calling. Far below, the remaining drones restarted, recording only a brief flash of energy before their systems failed again. When the search teams arrived hours later, they found the ruins empty. Only faint traces of silver dust and footprints leading into the lake remained. Back at the colony, scientists tried to explain what had happened. They claimed it was an unknown energy burst caused by magnetic storms. But a few of them whispered about something else, about a human who disappeared after helping an alien. About strange readings that showed two life signatures merging into one before vanishing completely. Years passed. The forest grew over the ruins again and the lake stayed calm. But on clear nights when both moons shone together, some colonists claimed they could see two lights moving in the sky, one blue, one silver, circling each other slowly before fading into the stars. They said it was a myth, a story told to new arrivals, a legend about a human who believed in an alien's heart more than in his own science. But somewhere beyond the reach of their scanners, far past the clouds of Virella 9, Ethan and Lyra flew among the stars. Her wings glowed brighter than ever, and his hand remained in hers. They spoke in the language they had made together, simple, full of trust, full of wonder. And in that endless sky, where life and light were one, their story became a part of something greater, a reminder that even across galaxies, compassion could bridge what fear never could.